Okay, I should be recording now. And getting started, welcome to our MSC quarterly webinar. This webinar is on managing holds. And if you haven't already, please put your name and library in the chat, just so I know who's here and how many folks attended. All right, here are the main points we're going to cover during this webinar. How holds work in the Symphony ILS. And the Symphony ILS, or Integrated Library System, is workflows, our online catalog, Blue Cloud Analytics, our app, all the good stuff that makes up our system. Then we're going to talk about, really briefly, how patrons can place and manage holds without staff intervention. Then managing holds in workflows, that's going to be a live demo. Followed by holds reports in Blue Cloud Analytics, what we call BCA. These are reports we want you to know about related to holds. And then finally, common holds issues and how to fix them. Please put your questions in chat. We have, I believe, 3 of our system administrators with us today. So they'll be keeping an eye out for questions and keeping me honest in case I mistakenly explained something wrong, which has been known to happen. All mistakes in this presentation are purely mine. If you're more comfortable reaching out to us after the webinar with your questions, please don't hesitate to open a ticket and we'll respond to you that way. So now let's get to it. How holds work in the Symphony ILS. Holds configuration in Symphony is extensive and layered, but there are a few takeaways that you should know as staff on the ground. Placing a hold on a library item means you're metaphorically getting in line and waiting your turn for it. Once the item becomes available, you can pick it up and check it out. And after you return the item, the next person in line will be notified that it's their turn. So holds accomplish 2 things. They create order out of chaos when it comes to popular titles and other parts of your collection that are popular. For example, hotspots maybe. Maybe at your library it's something different. By having patrons get in line and wait their turn, like I said, they also promote access to more collections. So if you're in a sharing group or part of a branch system, just your library system, by allowing patrons to request items from those other libraries in your group rather than you having to use interlibrary loan as staff. And placing a hold lets the system know when an item needs to go into transit. So one of our common questions is, how does the system know to allow a hold in the first place? Or maybe that's not a question you have necessarily, but it's one that I had for Amy and our team. So here's how she explained it to me. There are 3 criteria that need to be met for a hold to be placed successfully. For the item needs to be placed, for the item being placed on hold, the item type and the item library must allow holds. And finally, the patron's user profile must allow holds. So if any one of those criteria aren't met, the system won't allow a hold. So in the example I have on the screen, the item type 28-day, the user profile Belpub for the item library Belgrade, all those things align. And I am actually a Belgrade library patron, so my profile would I'd be able to make a hold on a Belgrade item with that item type. If, for example, the item type is something that indicates the item doesn't circulate and that one piece doesn't fit into the puzzle, then the item won't allow a hold. Likewise, if your library or your patrons are not allowed to place holds. So now for a question that does often get asked is, how does the system choose which item will fill a hold? Now, the answer involves a few criteria, including something called the holds matrix, which comes into play specifically when we're talking about sharing groups and libraries with branches. When choosing an item to fill a hold, pardon me, I have another Venn diagram here. The system looks at three criteria basically simultaneously. It looks to see which libraries have copies of the item currently on their shelves. The system is not considering items that are checked out to fill a holds request. It's also looking at which of those libraries that have on-shelf copies are currently open. And finally, if multiple libraries in your branch system or sharing group meet the first two criteria, the system references your library's hold matrix to see which library is highest in the list. Whichever is highest in the list, that's the copy that's chosen. For instance, on this slide, I've included the Belgrade Library's hold matrix list. Belgrade's in the BridgerNet sharing group. So let's say all of the libraries in the list are currently open. If both Bozeman and West Yellowstone have copies that could fill a hold at the Belgrade Library, the system will pick Bozeman's copy to go into transit because it is highest on the list. Now, there's one wrench, you could consider it a wrench, that can be thrown into the works here, which I have on the next slide. And keep in mind, sometimes this works out to the pickup library's advantage and sometimes not. And the system doesn't really know the difference between it being to your advantage or not. Okay, I know I have a lot of text on this slide, so I've offered you a scenario here of when this potential wrench happens and one exception to it. So let's say I'm working at the Belgrade Library and I just pulled up Belgrade's on-shelf items list. I'm going to talk about the holds process right after this. Yeah.
Kylie, I think we lost your audio right when you switched to this slide.
Oh, I apologize. Can you hear me okay now?
Yes, we can. You flipped back in, but you're sort of mid-sentence, and so.
Okay, great. So I apologize for throwing a lot of text at you guys. I put that on this slide in case you want to reference it later. I'll have the slides on the Aspen event link. So, but just for clarity, I'm also going to kind of walk you through it here. Let's say I'm working at the Belgrade Library. I'm staff there, and I just pulled up my library's on-shelf items list. Now, this is part of the holds process that I'm going to talk about here shortly. But this list tells me that we have an item that can fill a hold in Bozeman. And while I'm walking to the shelf to grab that item, and possibly some other items to fill other holds, staff in West Yellowstone check in a returned item. And that item can also fill the hold. So the system decides a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush and picks the West Yellowstone copy to fill the hold and go into transit to Bozeman. Now, I don't know this is happening as a staff person in Belgrade. So by the time I go to scan the Belgrade copy, the system tells me that it can just be reshelved. It's not needed anymore. Now, in this version of this scenario, the situation is not ideal, right? Because transiting the item from West Yellowstone to Bozeman will take longer than transiting from Belgrade. However, sometimes the circumstances are reversed and a library higher on the holds matrix list will suddenly have a copy available, and that saves time. So if the same thing happened where it was on West Yellowstone's list of items to grab from the shelf, but Belgrade suddenly was checking in items and realized that their copy could fill the hold in Bozeman, then the system will grab that one first. Now, there is one exception to this scenario, and that's if a copy of the item is checked in at the hold's pickup library. The system will switch the hold over to that item to fill it regardless, even if a copy from another library is already in transit. And the system will tell you to put that item back into transit to its home library when you check it in. So in the scenario we've discussed, if the West Yellowstone copy is in transit to Bozeman, but a copy becomes available, as CERC staff are checking in items at Bozeman, then the Bozeman copy will fill the hold when it's checked in. And when the West Yellowstone copy arrives, it gets to the Bozeman library and it's scanned. It'll probably just be routed back to West Yellowstone unless there's another hold it can fill somewhere else. So that's a lot of information to throw at you guys, and that's why we have these slides for reference. But this is a question we often get asked, and I know it can be kind of confusing. It's sort of the system's way of trying to be flexible and meet your needs quickly, but it's kind of a balancing act here. It's not human. This is just a computer system trying to help you out. Does anyone have any questions before I move on to ask about any of the slides so far, about like how the system knows to allow holds, how it chooses which hold to fill, and kind of some of the quirky aspects of that? And if there are any other questions, sysadmins, just let me know. Sounds like no. All right. So now before we dive into the specifics of placing and managing holds, I just want to point out that here's a quick look at the holds process and best practices that we'll kind of talk about a little bit more, the meat and potatoes, shortly. Most importantly, in this graphic on the left, we've got this circle in 4 pieces. And the one kind of in the top left says view on-shelf items. Every day that your library is open, you should be checking to see if there are holds that can be filled by your library's collection. We refer to this as your on-shelf items list, and this can be viewed in the on-shelf items wizard. Now, this list is dynamic, which means it updates throughout the day and can be checked more than once as time allows for you. For some libraries, it's strictly doable once a day, and for other libraries, it can be multiple times a day. Now, moving to the next piece to the right of that one, if you have on-shelf items, you should check them in to let the system know the holds have been filled. Then to the next piece, place the items on the hold shelf or wherever your library keeps them so that they're ready for pickup by your patrons. Now, if you can't find items on your on-shelf list in your collection, you go to the shelf, you don't see anything there, maybe you look around the rest of the library, you can't find that item, you can mark that item missing to kind of be looked for again and handled later. The system, once you have actually scanned the items in the check-in wizard to alert the system, hey, I got these holds off the shelf, they're filled. The system notifies patrons of their holds the day after the holds have been filled. This is just how the system's set up. So even if you fill these holds really early in the day, patrons won't be notified until the next day. However, keep in mind that the standard time that patrons are allowed to pick up their items is 8 days, 8 library open days for them to pick up their holds. And this is to allow for them to have, 7 days to do it because, once they've been notified. There are a few exceptions to that rule, but the standard is 8 days. So that's also a question we often get is, why didn't someone get an email immediately once their hold was available? Well, that's not how it works, unfortunately. And right now, the MSC app doesn't have push notifications. So unless a patron is in the app looking at their, holds page in that moment, they're not going to realize that they have a hold available. Now, finally, kind of this last piece in the lower left-hand section of the circle. Every day you're open, you should also be cleaning the hold shelf. And I don't mean like literally cleaning it. To do this, what I mean is you're going to be double checking to see, okay, have any of these holds expired, meaning the patron hasn't picked it up in the time allowed? Or did someone maybe realize they didn't need the hold anymore, so they canceled it, or they suspended it? Now, these processes I'll talk about in a sec. But that means it doesn't need to be on the hold shelf anymore. So every day you're open, you want to clean the hold shelf. And to do this, you'll consult another wizard, the Manage Hold Shelf wizard, which will list any holds that you filled them, but they weren't picked up in time. They were canceled, they were suspended, and it also updates throughout the day, just like the on-shelf items. So if you want, you can do it multiple times a day, though you can check it, but you don't have to. Doing this keeps your holds area tidy. Regardless of the size of your library, holds take up space. So keeps your area tidy, and it ensures that items that need to go into transit somewhere else get on their way, or holds that aren't needed anymore are put back on the shelf. Now, on the right-hand side here, I have a couple of bullet points. I just want to talk about that in addition to this daily process on the left, staff should also be checking other reports on a weekly and monthly basis. The first one are specifically for sharing group libraries. They should be checking their transit lists to and from weekly, and these lists are currently only available in workflows. And if you're in a sharing group, we probably already have these set up for you, but if you don't know about them and you want to understand more about them, please reach out to us, open a ticket. We can double check for you, we can walk you through it. The next bullet point is something all libraries should be doing. You should be checking reports to identify old holds at least once a month. And I'm going to talk about this later, but by old holds, one example I listed here is, we have a report called Unfilled Holds for more than 3 months. Because obviously we don't want patrons, if possible, if there's something we can do, we don't want them waiting for a long time to get their hold if there's one available. So this helps us check the system, make sure everything's on the up and up. Now, I'm almost to the workflows demo, but I feel like I'd be remiss if I didn't just review really quickly how our patrons are able to place and manage holds themselves. Now, our online catalog and app are live, so I took screenshots earlier. I'm not going to be showing you a live demo since I don't have like a test instance to show you on without potentially placing a hold and have like Bozeman go to fill it immediately, for example. So for placing holds, patrons can do that either in our online catalog, Enterprise, or in the MSC app. So in this top left of the Enterprise section, I just am in the detailed display of a record, and I've highlighted the place hold button that they might see there. Then when you click that, you get a little pop-up where they're like, okay, where do you want to pick up this hold? And if your library is in a sharing group, your patron will have more options. If you're just a lone library, then your library will be the default, and they can place a hold that way. From the app, it looks pretty similar. Place hold button on the item display screen, and then choosing your pickup location. They can also manage those holds from the online catalog and the app. So on the left, I'm in the My Account page of Enterprise and on the Holds tab, and I can see as a patron holds I've successfully placed, as well as their status. So this one's pending, it hasn't been filled yet. And I can see my pickup library and when the hold itself expires, which is slightly different from the expiration date of taking it off the hold shelf. I'll talk about that momentarily. And from here, you see I have a few options. I can cancel the hold if I don't need it anymore. I can edit my pickup location or suspend the hold. Same with the MSC app. So I just want to remind you guys that these things are there, patrons are using them. And I've included in these slides links to our relevant knowledge base articles that have more information as well as the exact steps I'm talking about today. So we have more information on common tasks in Enterprise and the app, including how patrons can place holds. So just know that that's there. You can search for those articles in our knowledge base, or you can download the PDF of these slides, which I'm going to add to the Aspen event page after the webinar. Finally, the good stuff, managing holds in workflows. And when I say managing, what I'm talking about is I'm going to show you how to place holds, how to fill them, how to clean your hold shelf, as well as how you can help patrons when they ask you to change their pickup location or suspend their hold instead of doing them themselves, as well as removing holds. Before I get into that, does anyone have any questions? Sounds like no. All right. Can you see my workflows screen, Amy, or anyone?
Yes, we can.
Excellent. So I am logged in to the test server. You notice MSC test here in the right-hand corner. I'm logged into Belgrade's test instance, so it's like I'm a staff person there. And I'm in the circulation module. Now I'm going to go down to the holds toolbar. And I open that. This may look a little different from your holds toolbar in your library right now. I've put here just kind of the primary wizards that I'm going to be using for this demo, and I didn't want it to look too cluttered. And for anyone watching this webinar, maybe it just being a little bit easier to remember which wizards to use for what. So first, I want to place some holds, make sure I have some examples here to show you on test. So if I have a patron that comes up to the desk or gives me a call and says, I want to place a hold on this item, here's how I do it. Go to place hold, and you can, if you want, set this up to open the user search pop-up, which I'm going to have to do because I don't have a card to scan, or you can scan the user's card. And I'm looking for my training user, good old Frank. And I'm going to say I'm going to place a hold for this user. So it's going to pop up his information here that's relevant. And maybe if I'm talking on the phone to Frank and I have an item in hand, I can scan that item to place the hold. More likely, I'm going to have to search for it. So up here, we have this helper item search. It's the book with the magnifying glass, naturally. So I'm going to open that up. Of course, it often takes a moment. All right. So the first thing I want you to notice here, when I open this up, Right now, I have it set to default to just the Belgrade library. I want to make sure I'm picking items that they own that will show up in the on-shelf items. But this may just follow whatever your cataloging setting is for your default. If you're actually trying to look for items to place a hold on across a sharing group, you want to select your sharing group from the in this library field. All right, so now I'm going to think of an item that I want to place on hold. Let's see. I figure the Hobbit will be around somewhere. Okay, how about we go with the motion picture trilogy? That would be delightful. So I'm going to place a hold on that item. Well, I haven't actually placed the hold yet. It's just automatically filled in the item ID here, and it's double checking with me. Where do I want to pick up this item, or where does the patron want to pick it up from? Mine defaults to Belgrade, and you'll see here that the expiration field is automatically entered. Once I place this hold, the hold is good for a year. 365 days from the day it's placed, so February 27th, 2026. That just means that my hold request is good for that time. So, you know, let's say this trilogy DVD was brand new and everyone's placing holds on it, so we want to allow for that amount of time in case it takes a while for a patron to get a hold. So that's why we have it set to default to a year. All right, so this looks good to me. So I'm going to place this hold. And I have a pop-up that just confirms, hey, we placed the hold on this item. Do you want to do more? Place holds for another user, and so on. So I'm going to keep this screen open. So here's just, one example of placing a hold. But now that I know that a hold's been placed, let's pretend that I'm coming into Belgrade as a staff person. Morning. We're getting ready to open, and I'm going to say, okay, I want to see what items our library has to fill holds, if any. To do that, I go to on-shelf items. All right, we see one here. Obviously, your library, especially sharing group libraries, especially partners, likely your library is going to have a lot more holds listed, but this is just for demo purposes. So here we are. I can see here's the call number for this item and the title and so on. So I can go find it in the shelf, what, item type, how it circulates, where it's located, all that, and that it's our library that they want to pick it up at. Now, if I go out and go to grab this item, it's on the shelf, great. If I can't find it, just know that I can highlight it and mark it missing from here. Okay, I'm not going to do that because I want to show you other stuff, but just so you know, you don't have to open the mark item missing wizard. If you don't want to, you can do that right from this wizard. Instead, I'm going to go grab the item. Let's say I just did that. Now, and I grabbed maybe some other items that were on hold here. And so I brought them with me to the circulation desk. The next thing I'm going to do is check the item in to let the system know that I've got it, I can fill it. All right, and this, of course, because Belgrade has it turned on, make sure this has 2 discs. I'm going to say yes. Oh. Item not charged. Interesting. Maybe I just need to, oh, I picked the wrong item ID. Of course I did. Let me grab this actual one. Okay, and this has a lot more discs. Okay, so now that I've filled the hold, the system lets me know, hey, there's a hold available on this item, and it is available for this person. And we're just letting you know so that you can put it on the hold shelf. And depending on your library's in-house procedures, you may be scanning these holds at a workstation that's hooked up to like a receipt printer that prints like hold wrappers. Maybe you have fancy hold wrappers formatted. So I would just say, okay. And then I would go put that item on the hold shelf or store it wherever we put our holds. And the patron will get notified the next day. Now, who knows? Frank may come into the Belgrade Library today, not realize that his hold has been filled, but if he goes over to the hold shelf, he may see his name and voila. So no hard and fast rules here with necessarily when patrons will come in and see they have items available. Does anyone have questions about the placing, the checking the on-shelf items list, finding those items and checking them in to fill the hold?
There is one. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say that there is one question. I'm not sure that I'm answering it well in chat, so maybe some clarification. But Cindy's asking, I use workflows to put holds on individual item IDs and enterprise to put holds on the next item in the list. Is there a way to use workflows to put holds on the next item in the list too? And I said I wasn't sure what she meant by next item in the list, but usually, so you can see in the middle of the hold screen here, it says title. Title is basically the same. Putting a title hold on is going to be the same as placing a hold in enterprise. And you only want to use a copy level hold in very rare cases when you need a specific copy.
Thank you so much for reminding me about this, Cindy and Melody. I glossed right over it. So if I was, just like Melody said, maybe I do want a specific item, like maybe I know that this DVD set needs to be cleaned or buffed or whatever, because the last person, someone who brought it in said, oh, I think there's an issue with this. And I want to make sure as like the cataloger, the tech services person, okay, I'm going to place a hold on this item, maybe with our, cataloging account or repair account or whatever, so that this item specifically, and that is the only time I would choose, I'm going to make a copy level hold because I want this exact copy. But generally, and how we have the system set up to default to, is you're going to do a title hold. So since Belgrade's in a sharing group, right? If Frank places a hold on this DVD set and other libraries in the sharing group are attached to this bib record saying, hey, we also all have the same set, then the system knows, okay, I'm not just looking at a specific copy. I can pull kind of what we talked about earlier with which item does the system choose, right? It's going to look at, okay, which libraries have that item on shelf, which libraries are open, and which one can, I pull from. So if that answers your question.
Can I add one thing?
Please.
Okay. In general, the reason we recommend title holds is that it is almost always faster if there is more than one copy in your group, whether that group is you and your branches or you and your sharing group. If there's more than one copy, it will almost always be faster to get the hold filled into a patron if you use a title hold, because it's not waiting for a specific copy.
Thank you, Melody. Does that answer your question, Cindy?
I think it does. She says she said she knows how to do it now, so thanks.
Excellent. Great. Thank you. That's a wonderful question. Any other questions? Okay. Excellent. So, going back to our presentation, if anyone needs me to pull up this slide later, we've looked at our on-shelf items list. That's the first piece. We've gone out to the shelf, grabbed an item, and filled the hold by checking the item in. And now it's on our hold shelf. And, if the patron's set up to get email notifications or text, they're probably going to get the next day. Okay, but now as far as we're concerned, we're like, okay, that hold is handled. However, also daily, we want you to check one more thing, and that is whether or not any of the holds that are already on the shelf need to be cleaned off. And we do that by using the Manage Hold Shelf wizard. So I'm going to open that. And I thought I had one prepped for you guys, but it looks like it didn't go through yet. What'll happen is if a hold that has been filled has been canceled, meaning a patron or a staff person removed the hold from their account. If it's expired, meaning it's past the time for it to be picked up, or if it's been suspended, like they can't pick the hold up during the time in that date range, then the filled hold will show up here. And it's just the system telling you, okay, for whichever of these reasons, the patron's not going to get this item. So what we need you to do is take it off the hold shelf, check it back in, and then it'll either go back to your shelf at your library, or it'll go into transit to fill a hold or go back on the shelf of another library. And that's just a nice way to do it. I know that some of our libraries have hold wrapper slips, right, that let you know when the hold can be pulled off the shelf. If it hasn't been picked up, it has that, pick up by date. But that doesn't necessarily account for items that you didn't know if they've been canceled or suspended, right? So this is just sort of the fail-safe for that, is your Manage Hold Shelf wizard. And I apologize for not having an example for you guys. But basically what you do is you can pull that item, check it in, or if there's a list of items, there will be checkboxes and you can process them, meaning you can just check them in again, basically. Okay.
There were a couple questions that were asked and answered in the chat, Kylie, but just to have them in the recording as well.
Please,
there was a question about the comments on the placehold screen. There's a box for comments. And the answer is that most people don't use them. If you might occasionally see a note from one of us system admins if we have to replace a hold for some reason. They don't show up in very many places, and it just generally, a hold is a hold. But yeah, they're just, if you can put them there. And
definitely.
There is a question about, will holds canceled show in workflows show up on the Manage Hold shelf? And the answer is yes. Yeah, everything that has been, set to fill for a patron will show up on that hold shelf until the item gets checked in and processed. But there is actually no cancel hold button in workflows. There's only the remove user hold button.
Yeah.
So that works a slightly different way. But if you remove a hold and then don't go in and check the item in, I think it will stay on this Manage Hold shelf.
It should stay on the Manage Hold, as long as I just put in there, as long as that little checkbox that says canceled is selected. Obviously, if you're only looking for expired or suspended and you don't have that box checked, then it won't show you canceled.
I obviously can't really demonstrate it right now, but you get to decide which of these you see when you open the wizard. Thank you, you guys. So I just want to talk a little bit more about modifying holds, and I realize I have all these open, but modifying holds, if I pull up Frank, for example, now I filled this hold, but this is the screen I'll see, and he only has one hold, and it shows as available. So the things I can do here, if I want to modify this hold or others, if there are multiple, I can select it and click modify. Now, you can do, this is obviously changing the pickup location. It's better to do that, either helping your patron or for them to do it themselves before the hold is filled, because we may not be able to see, oh, they changed the pickup location when we already have it on our hold shelf, right? But one of the things that you'll be able to see here is the expiration date of that hold. And this is the 365-day kind of box that we can edit from here. I'm going to show you that later. But There's the pickup location, and then there's also date suspended and date unsuspended. Now, suspending a hold is useful in certain scenarios, like if I have a bunch of holds placed and maybe they haven't come in yet, but I'm about to go on vacation. And so I want to make sure I don't miss that hold coming in, then I can suspend it. And to do that, definitely press the little diamond gadgets, and I could say, okay, I'm going to be gone starting today through, it's very important to include date unsuspended. And I'll say, okay, I'll be gone for a week. Say, okay. You'll see, all right, during this time frame, I don't want to be eligible for that hold to come in because I don't want to miss the pickup. And I say, okay. And it'll just say, all right, we've suspended that hold. No one else is waiting. So put it back on the shelf. Now it looks like this because I already filled the hold. But it's just letting me know now, okay, this has been suspended. Here's the unsuspended date. Once that date passes, it's just like normal. It's just like the patrons on the hold list, and if the item is available for them, we'll go through the regular process of filling it and they'll be notified it's available. And now, well, this might not show up yet. Let me try reopening it. It's a little tricky on test. Yeah, it won't show up, but in the live version, the production server of workflows, I would then be able to look at the manage hold shelf, and the hold would appear as suspended here. So I would know to take it off the hold shelf. Does that make sense? Or does anyone have any questions, I guess I should say?
If you click active and uncheck it again, it might show up. Okay.
Alas.
Sometimes it does.
Sometimes it does. Tests can be a little tricky, so I apologize for that, you guys. And the last thing I kind of wanted to show you here is to remove holds. Obviously, patrons can do this themselves as well, but if we were to do it, I could pull up Frank in the Remove User Holds wizard. I find it's easier to do it from the user perspective as opposed to from like the title or item level, because I don't know about you guys, I'm sure you're all a lot better than me, but I can get a little click happy and then I might be affecting someone else's holds. So I try to go into the user way, and then I could just click it and choose to remove holds. Now, let's see here. The one thing I wanted to say before doing that is a question we've had from time to time is, what if my patron needs like one more day to pick up this item, but they sort of missed the 8-day window, but they need just one more day? Well, we encourage you to abide by the rules in your sharing group. So if the rule is, listen, they have 8 days and that's it, we encourage you to abide by that. However, if the item maybe isn't as popular or hot right now, you can double check, does this item have a hold on it? And if it doesn't, you could always replace the hold on this item that's the hold has expired on, and check it back in again and put it back on the shelf for another 8 days. But if the item does have a hold on it and someone else is waiting, we really encourage you to put that item back into transit, or make it available if you are still the pickup library, make it available for the next person. Not sure if that's a question any of this group had, but I wanted to address it. And the way you could do that is go to display item holds, and I could say, okay, is this item on hold for anyone? And it would show up here if it was. This one, as you see, is suspended. So we don't really have to worry about that. But if there were multiple other people waiting for this item and someone else wasn't able to pick it up, I would probably just check it in and have it go to the next person. Okay.
There's a couple questions, Kylie, in the chat.
Yes, please.
One is asking if they've gone into display user and removed the hold from there with right click.
You could do that as well. So I just opened display user holds, and I think you can right click on it, and you can also modify or remove a hold here as well. Yes. You can also do that from display user, I believe, too.
And both are okay. Neither one of those will change.
I can do that
basically. Here. And also it works the same if a patron goes into enterprise and cancels their own hold. Any of the ways that a hold gets canceled or removed will make it show up on the manage hold shelf. But the other question we had was, what if I check it in? If you check it in, so if you remove a patron hold and then you check it in, the system will say, oh, there's no hold anymore. We're going to transit it home or tell it to go back to the shelf. In that case, it won't show up on your manage hold shelf list because it's already on its way to where it needs to go.
Yeah, you've already processed it, basically. Exactly.
But neither way is wrong. If you remove the hold and check it in, that's fine. If you remove the hold and then later check manage hold shelf, that's fine too.
Totally. Thank you, admins. All right. I'm going to bring our presentation back up if everyone's good with that. Okay. So what I just discussed during this demo is our knowledge base. All this information is in our knowledge base, information on placing, filling holds, cleaning the hold shelf, modifying, and removing. Okay, really quickly, I just want to highlight some holds reports, or what it will look like in Blue Cloud Analytics, because we do have reports relevant to holds. And here's just a screenshot, because sometimes Blue Cloud Analytics is a great tool. And when I am not demoing it, it always works very quickly for me. But usually when I go to demo it, something happens. And so I don't know if it's user error or what. So I just grabbed this screenshot, and I just want to talk to you about kind of each of these folders, what you can expect, what this kind of looks like. So in Blue Cloud Analytics, if you go into shared reports, and then there's a circulation folder and then a holds folder. This is the view inside the holds folder. It contains like reports that tackle a few different things. The first is a series of reports that contains stats attesting to the work you're doing handling holds. So this filled holds folder on the left, that has reports that give you counts of holds filled by either the item library or the pickup library, as well as the average hold fill times by pickup library. The next folder, placed holds. This is where you get more counts of holds placed. Surprise, surprise. And you'll be able to indicate your own date range or choose a monthly snapshot. We have the snapshots kind of just out on this main screen in the bottom right. And finally, the sharing group libraries can also access certain transit stat reports from the sharing group folder, which is not from the main holds page, but just know that those reports exist, as well as, and if you have any requests, I should have said this before I got into this section, if you can't find any of the reports I mentioned here, or if you don't see it, what you're looking for in Blue Cloud Analytics when you search, please open a ticket and ask us about it, because we can either direct you to where you need to go, or we can help tweak a report for you that may be relevant to a whole sharing group or just your library, and we can put that in the relevant folder, including your library folder. The second thing that this series of reports, kind of the view it takes, is it allows you to make informed purchasing decisions, especially if your library is in a sharing group like partners. So the next row down, top holds here. This is talking about top holds in either selected libraries. You could look in your library, multiple libraries, or the shared catalog as a whole. You can see all the what holds, what items are getting holds placed on them like crazy. And you can also narrow that down by audience or format if you want to get more specific. And again, we have sharing group specific reports like this in the sharing group folder and individual library folders upon request. Finally, these reports kind of help you to keep your hold services running smoothly. That means lists of unfilled holds. We got a whole folder for that. Suspended or expired holds. And I'm going to show you an example of that shortly, looking at unfilled holds, greater than 3 months, for example. So I just want you to know that these exist. You can either navigate to them through like the breadcrumbs I've listed up top, or you can search for them by keyword. And if you get a little overwhelmed and aren't sure what reports are useful for you, we do have a couple knowledge base articles on that. You can also just ask us because we want to help you out. So one example of an article we have is core reports, and holds aren't the only thing mentioned there, but a certain holds report is listed. So you can look at that. Now, kind of to the most interesting, I think, aspect and kind of the most complex part of holds is common holds issues and how to fix them. I want to specify that most holds in our consortium do get filled in a timely manner or a relatively timely manner, depending on how popular the item is, right? But this is kind of for the exceptions to that rule. So please, if you haven't checked stuff like this before, as I talk about it more, we only have a few more slides. Please don't worry, but do reach out to us if this is all brand new to you and you're not sure where to start. So before I get into this image, I just want to say that, reminder, holds requests expire after 1 year, 365 days of not being filled, unless they're modified to allow for more time. How long it takes to fill a hold depends on multiple things. And this probably all makes sense to you guys. It's not uncommon, for instance, for holds to take up to 3 months if titles are popular, if there aren't enough copies of an item, or if all the copies are checked out when the hold's placed. It's also not unusual for holds to take longer if the hold is placed when the item's on order, right? Because publishing dates aren't always set in stone and we don't know when we're going to get that item, so the holds could just be growing and growing. So what we recommend is that if you don't already have like sharing group rules of when you really should be checking things, that each library should also decide, okay, how long should items be on hold before we consider an issue that it hasn't been filled. This is an example of a report for the partner sharing group where they take a look at a list of unfilled holds that have been waiting to be filled for more than 3 months. And this is just one. There are more columns in this report. I just sort of clipped it for brevity here. But we know, okay, here's a list of holds that were created on these certain items. Here's the date they were created. So the top one, for example, this hold was placed February of last year. And I can tell some information right away from that hold. So the item itself has a barcode where it's like, okay, this is probably still waiting to be cataloged because it doesn't have the correct item ID, right? And its home location or the item collection in BCA is cataloging. So it's waiting to be cataloged. That makes sense. Maybe this item just came in, we've been waiting for it for a while. Same thing with the item below that. You can see that its home location is on order. So That makes sense. We're still waiting on that to even come in. But maybe I have a couple questions about the next few. Like, okay, this book on shipwrecks, the third one down, was the hold was placed February 20th last year. And I took this screenshot a little while ago. I actually double checked. A lot of these things have been handled, you guys. So this is not me judging any library. Partners is on it, okay? But this is just for example purposes. So I'm a little concerned, okay, like it's been over a year for this item. What's going on? Because it looks like it's in the stacks and it's in on the shelf, so it should be transiting. And that's where I might want to make some more checks, right? Same for this bottom item here. It says it's on the shelf in the nonfiction section. It's in transit, but I can double check that it's going to where it needs to go, right? So this is just to get you thinking of the different reasons that holds could be taking a while to fill. It's generally common sense stuff. Now, what if like some of the items we just saw on the last screen, those hold requests are about to expire because it's been, at the time I took that screenshot, it'd been almost a year. So you might be asking yourself, can I just let the old holds expire? And technically, yes, you could do that, but just know, before I get into these other steps, that patrons don't get any notice from the system when this happens. Like it doesn't automatically notify them. And this can kind of undermine our patrons' trust in the system. And it's also difficult for the MSC admins, your friendly neighborhood admins, to investigate and identify why holds weren't filled if they've already expired. So for this reason, we just ask that you remove the holds before they expire and contact the patron prior to the expiration date, or you handle it in this other way. So holds about to expire. The first thing we recommend you do is check with your patron to see if they still want the item. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they forgot they had that hold and they already got the book or whatever they needed. And so you can remove that hold. If they do still want the item, you can go into one of our modified wizards. You can go into modify user hold is what I recommend and what I have a screenshot of here. And remember, I pointed out this expires field. So what you'll do is you'll just click the little diamond gadget there, and you can enter using a calendar the new expiration date. The only caveat to that is we say, please don't extend the expiration date over a year into the future. For multiple reasons, this can cause problems in the system, but definitely give your patron, enough leeway to get the hold. If you need to, after more investigation, you can also order another copy if it's needed, or, worst case, you can interlibrary loan the item if it's not something that's in your policy to purchase more of. Now we get to kind of one of our big questions. Is there a problem with these items that the hold isn't getting filled, or is the item, the title, the whatever, just really popular? A lot of people are in line and it's taking a while. So the best tool for identifying holds issues is the item search and display wizard, which I have a screenshot of here. It's under common tasks in the circulation modules. You guys are probably pretty used to seeing this. And if a library is part of a sharing group, libraries can pull up the record in item search and display. Like I've done here, I looked up this record, the entire sky, and I clicked on the call number item tab once you're viewing a record in item search and display. And then you can check different tabs. There's kind of two sets of tabs here on the right to sort of sleuth out what's going on. So in this scenario, I looked at the holds tab to see how many holds there are. There aren't very many. This item could have been really popular and we're finally getting through all those holds, right? If there are, I just want to compare the number of holds to the number of volumes available in our sharing group, which is on the left here, all the stuff that's been added to this bib record. If there are a lot of copies available, or they have a current location of checked out holds, meaning they're on someone's hold shelf or in transit, then there's likely no problem here. The item's just popular. And if the hold request is coming up on its expiration date, the solution is just to modify the expiration date to allow for more time for all these things to cycle through. Now, one thing I want to note here, I have a couple little red X's next to some other fields on the holds tab. And that's to know when you're investigating holds and you get to this tab, please do not rely on the position information or the owning library listed on the holds tab. For example, if there were a lot more holds in this list still, think back to the configuration of the system is going to choose which library's item is going to fill a hold based on a lot of factors. So the reason owning library, for example, is filled out here is because it's just a placeholder. This could change as different items are checked in as time goes on. So I'm just telling you, please don't tell your patron, oh, you're number one and the item is coming from here. Because unless there's only one hold on this item, that's probably inaccurate. Okay, that's probably inaccurate. I don't know if you guys caught that. My internet connection went out for a sec. And if you have more questions about that, I'm sure one of the system administrators could answer that better for you. Just a couple more slides, guys, to continue with the, is this hold having a problem, or are the items just popular? If there are not many items or holds, you should look closer to see why the hold's not being filled. So you can check other things. This is the same screen I was showing you before, except we've got some other tabs checked. So on the left, you can look down and check the last activity date. If that's like an old date, we might have a question about what's going on, but we see this item is in transit as of, February 24th. So it's fairly recent. Now we can check, the checkouts tab, the circ info tab, or the holds tab. So right here, I have circ info checked, and I can see because this item's in transit, there's some transit information at the bottom right saying when it was sent, which matches the last activity. So it's possible, okay, this item's going from Missoula to HFL to fill a hold. It's probably just on its way, okay? We have more information on common reasons for holds problems listed in our knowledge base. I have it linked in the next slide. But if you cannot identify an issue, using the information we have here, but maybe you suspect there is one, open a ticket so that we can investigate further for you. One common question, one common problem we run into, though, before we wrap up here today, is there is a bug in Enterprise that if one of your patrons is, logged into their account and they're looking to place holds, if they click around enough and get to another library's Enterprise page and they go to place a hold, they'll be able to have their pickup library in the dropdown, even if, they shouldn't be able to place holds on this library's items. We are aware of that. It doesn't happen often. Some of you may be nodding your heads like, oh, we opened a ticket about that once. Just know that this is out there and we will confirm with you if that's happened with one of your items. The solution there is basically the library that the patron belongs to. You could possibly reach out to them and just say, hey, could you please let your patron know they just placed the hold on this item in error, or whatever your sharing group policy is. But just always be polite. This just happened accidentally. If you have more questions about how to handle that, just contact us. And here's our knowledge base article on problem holds and how to solve them. And thank you guys so much for being here. I know I went a few minutes over and I really appreciate your time. Please take this survey. I have the QR code here and I'll have it in the Aspen event page as well. Here's the information you'll need, the date and title of the training, and I also included the link if you prefer that. So that is my last slide. Do you guys have any questions?
There is one question, yeah, but can you drop that link in the chat box here too, Kylie?
Yes, I will do
I tried
that.
to select, but I couldn't.
Oops, I apologize. One moment. I will grab that while you're answering questions.
Amy, do you want to address Denise's question or do you want me to?
I can. So the question is more explanation of where someone is in the hold list so that you can explain that to staff. If we'll give this a couple more seconds, but then if Kylie, like where she was on that in item search and display, and you can see the user, the position. If you actually go and click through like say you're a partner or another sharing group library, and you click through all of the copies on a title, the number of holds often changes that you see in the list on the right often changes, and the patrons listed will be different just because of different settings. Like if a patron wanted a specific copy,
talking about right here.
There's 4 holds here. I was actually just troubleshooting an issue last week. When I clicked on the first item, there was 22 holds listed. When I clicked on another item further down in the sharing group, there was 27 holds listed. And so some of it is if the item is in transit to fill a hold for a patron, then they aren't going to be listed in this list for anyone but the copy that is in transit to fill them, even though still that's kind of a placeholder item. Like if a different item gets to their library first and they're next on the list, they'll get that other item first, but they won't show up in the list here. So the position number on this screen and in other places is literally just, it counts from the earliest date to, the last date, but it's only looking on this item and everything that can fill this item without taking several other things into effect or into account. Suspensions, if something's in transit already.
And there's 2 other reasons too. So some of the partners libraries, this isn't, if you're not a partner, ignore. Some partners libraries shelter. And so some holds may be available for local patrons that aren't available for the whole group. And then I also would just caution you never to tell people what order they're in the list for a number of other reasons. Like, for example, we might have 2 duplicate records that end up in the system, and I may merge them together, which then the holds lists gets merged together. And someone who was number 2 might be number 6 because other people placed an earlier hold on the other record, even though they're the same book. So when we merge those records, someone ends up lower down. So we just encourage you not to tell people what order they're in and that they will be filled in the order they are received and available.
Yeah, the position, if I could hide that, I would on this screen, because it literally, the only thing that the position means in our system is that it is what position it is on this list that's displaying right here based on date. And this list right here is not a complete list of holds on the title and who can fill it and where they can get the item from. So it's even in a single branch library that does not share, you just can't guarantee that that number is actually the order that the items are going to come in, because there's so many other configuration things that happen.
For example, again, suspensions. If there's 4 patrons who have this on hold and suspended, but all of their suspensions end and they place the hold before the people who are number 1 in line, those suspended patrons end up being in front because they placed their holds first. But they might be suspended right now, so you may not, it's just not a great thing to tell them what number they are because it is inaccurate.
Thank you both very much. Well, if there are no other questions, I'm going to end this recording.